You can light a handful of incense. I have to share. That's fine. Peter's got to sit up in one of those chairs back there.
How are you, my friend?
How do you share as
Congratulations
on somebody's status?
your degree.
Oh, thank you. How's the world of light and sound?
It's loud and bright.
How's the world of light and sound?
It's loud and bright.
Oh, we will have one?
Have some, yeah, serve some.
Can you turn?
Yes, please.
Daima.
Oh, do you have your cup?
Last time Komalakanta knew how to do this. Looking more.
Oh, yes, please. Thank you. That's right.
Sorry, I'm trying to the new technique. Yeah, it's much better, much better. Sorry, those online were a few technical difficulties.
It's just a phone.
It's just a phone.
There it is. See you again. Sorry, I forget your name. Jiteshwar, that's right.
Peter.
Well, I don't know how to share this on my...
Is it?
Because he did something, but... Here. Alright, I
It
guess.
says you joined.
What's that?
It says that you joined.
Yeah, but how do I share it on my page is the question. You can share it on your... On Kālī Mandir's page, because it's on Kālī. So that's a little confusing. It's alright. We have our hymnals. You can share it on your, that's not a problem, right? Okay, Ma. Okay. Om Stapakaya Chadharmasya Sarvadharma Sarupine Avatar Varishtaya Ramakrishnayate Namaha Om Jananim Shadadam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagatkurum Parapadme Tayostritva Pranamami Muhur Muhur Om Sara Shiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Ashmaracharya Prayantam Vande Gurum Paramparam Om Jayanti Mangala Kālī Bhadra Kālī Kapalini Durga Kshama Shiva Datri Sahasranāma Sahasranāma. So continuing from last week, we picked up after many months on the Kālī Sahasranāma, the 1,000 names of Mother Kālī. And the section we are in now is kind of part of like almost like dhyan slokas. It's going through describing primarily her form, this cluster of names describing her forms. In the previous verses, it was describing her malas, her munda malas, her then some of her she was holding a skull like that, describing her. Then it moved into the sindoor on her top of her head, and we talked about that. And then so last week it was primarily describing her teeth, right? And the first verse 12 there is the one we did last week. Sulocanā, no, I'm sorry, that's verse 11, the one we did last week. Gora rupa gora damstra gora gora tara shubha mahadamstra mahamaya sudanti yoga dantura. And so the first, just a quick recap. Last week is a Gora Rupa. She presents a tremendous form, and of course Kālī. We read some standard dhyans of her. It presents, the skulls and blood and swords and all this. So it's definitely, but also the hints of that cluster of names is that Gora Rupa is the awesomeness of her reality as time. And the next name is Gora Damstra. She has horrible teeth, and then her teeth that devour everything. And we justified our interpretation because 4 names later, it says Yuga Dantura, that the yugas, the ages, are her teeth. Right? Everything is being swallowed by time, by the ages, or she herself swallows ages. It's another thing. She is that awesome reality, right? So it was meant to present us with this overwhelming picture of her teeth. The next few verses will describe her eyes, and then this verse, and then the next verse will describe her smile and her. So even though you have this Gora Rupa, Gora Ramstra, Gora Gora Tara Shubha, it's in the middle of it. It's Shubha, right? She's also wonderful and pure, right? So to see that awesome form of time and space and causation and the world of name and form and of samsara as her, that's horrible. It's Gora, right? But if we see it properly, or we see who's behind it, who shined through it, it's also Shubha, wonderful. And so the transition between her fierce teeth and her that devour time and devour ages, or who are the ages, and then it also says, which is the definition of Mahamaya. It says Mahadamsra Mahamaya Shusudanti. The transition now, it's already by saying Shubha and Sudanti, her teeth, that teeth that devour everything, is also beautiful and wonderful. So the transition already to a beautiful set of names for deeper contemplation is given, right? So that's where we are now, verse 12, and I think it's names 82 through 87 are in verse 12. And let's see, let me find it here. Sudanti. sulocanā, virūpākṣī, viśālākṣī, trilocanā. You need a. I'll give you your own shastra here. You get two because you're that special. There's more. Right. So it's verse 12. So sulocanā, virūpākṣī, viśālākṣī, trilocanā. So sulocanā. So su means beautiful, lochana means eyes, like lotus-like eyes, right? So it's beautiful or good. So sulocanā. So after describing her teeth that devour ages, that are goda, that are horrible or frightening or scary, she's also now to say, but her eyes, she has very beautiful eyes, right? And so and of course that was some time back. Swami Bhajanananda was sitting here. He was kind of a surprise satsang with him. He came for tea, and then we caught him. We tied him up and forced him. Stuck a microphone in front of him. Oh, what should I talk about? Let's talk about Kālī. Well, we talked about Kālī. And he was saying that, it's like, the people, this frightening form, even quoted these type of alliances, but nobody sees her. I mean, her devotees, sometimes there's some dramatic paintings and medieval paintings and that show the way they're described in the Chandi and like that, but usually we see her beautiful, shining with motherly affection, with eyes of compassion, eyes of ecstasy and bliss. That's usually, even though she has all the Goda Rupa stuff, right, usually her eyes are seen as, we look at her eyes, darshan, we want to see her and be seen by her, and there's a transfer that happens, So we usually don't see her in this Goda. Even inside, she has a garland of skulls, a garland of heads, right? A sword, a jackal, right? Her tongue sticking out, right? But nobody thinks, oh my God, Kālī Mandir. Oh, you have to go to Kālī Mandir. It's a horrible form of Kālī there. And nobody said. There are temples like you have to go to Kālīghat or something like that. There's some very kind of a different Shakti to them, right? But usually Dakshineswari, Kālīghat, Kālī actually, she's very beautiful too, very powerful. But Ajapit, and you go to these Sharambal, these ancient or modern and ancient Kālī temples. You go there. Oh my God, she's so beautiful, so powerful. You don't come thinking, oh my God, she's so frightening. I can't believe how anybody worships Kālī. Right? It's not usually, some people, they have a predisposition to think, why would anybody worship Kālī, But her devotees, you see her, is so beautiful. So especially by focusing on her smile and her mood and her eyes, is going to be a connection of grace. So part of the eyes, we look when we have this word darshan, when we see the deity, or sometimes we use have Ishvara darshan, means you've also seen God, not only like gone to a temple and seen Ma, but also when you have a vision of God or a realization of God, they also call it Ishvara darshan. So darshan is not just seeing, right? It's not looking. Right? What's the word we were using?
Encounter.
It's an encounter, right? Like I can see you or look at you, but an encounter is usually for an encounter you have to look. There has to be almost like an eye-to-eye contact, an awkward eye-to-eye contact. That's how most encounters are. Why are they staring at me? It's going a little too long. Jaiman, please come. So darshan. So part of darshan is that of beholding or encountering. It's a two-way communication. Even if you have a darshan of a place, not just looking. What some sadhu says, it's not looking like a tourist, right? You look at them. Oh yes, I saw. So I've seen people walk in. They walk into the temple and they look around and they walk out. So they glance around. It's like they didn't see it. They looked at everything and left, and they didn't see anything, right? Or didn't have darshan. Or they haven't encountered anything. Diamond. We get you twice in a row. This is good. Diamond. So part of darshan is a contact. That's why a lot of emphasis is given to her eyes and these names: beautiful eyes, big eyes, amazing eyes. These are I'm giving the next few minutes away, right? What these are, and part of the eyes also. What we do with eyes is when we look at something, or somebody looks at us, we have this word drishti, right? And drishti means just to see. Right, but sometimes it's drishti. Somebody's we call it the evil eye, right? You know, like somebody looked at us wrong, or some, you know, and even like in babies, they put a black mark to absorb. Even people like, oh, how cute little baby, like even that's like a weird, like it's not even your baby, and you're a little bit, you know, it's like a weird energy. Even if it's meant affectionately, but it's a weird affection from somebody you don't know. So you want to protect your child a little bit. So it's said to absorb the evil eye, right? But the evil eye is simply, they call it drishti, right? That's a very common. Most people, if somebody stares at you in public, it makes you very uncomfortable. It's weird drishti, right? Even Swami Shivananda says you should keep your shrine, your altar, and lock and key, right? Because you don't want these people looking, right? Because they're not looking properly. You go into the shrine, you look at Ma, you look at the saints, you look at Shiva with such a certain way. You have darshan, you have an affectionate interchange, but not everybody looks like, that's weird. You know, even that's like a weird, but it's considered, because seeing is a very intimate connection, right? And we believe the person you're seeing is real, not just a picture. You know, so we're also protecting the holy things from drishti, from being seen, from mundane looking. So darshan is a deeper thing. So giving a little bit of background, because this is going to be the point. I believe the point of meditating on these names is to deepen our direct contact with the Devi this way. So actually, sulocanā means good or beautiful eyes. So that's a simple. So she has very beautiful eyes. Right, that's a simple thing. And so I was thinking this morning when we were having coffee, I was thinking beautiful. Like there's some texts that are, because there's texts that describe her eyes very beautiful, extremely nice. And the one that immediately came to my mind is the Sundar Lahari. That has very beautiful descriptions. It's written, attributed to Shankaracharya, Sundar Lahari, Ananda Lahari. And as I was telling the story a little bit, that the belief story is, it's actually in two parts. The Sundar Lahari is that Shankaracharya went to, not Kailash, he didn't go on Kailash Yatra, he went to celestial Kailash, in the highest regions, which means even the highest regions of consciousness and top like that. And there he had darshan of Devi Ambika, the Divine Mother herself, and asked for some details of her worship, and so she gave her, if I'm remembering properly, I think hymns that Lord Shiva himself wrote, a tantric exposition on Sri Vidya Tantra, right? So he was very happy. So he's, oh, this is a very special thing. I'm taking now this to earth, and from this we can. It's a very sublime exposition on the Devi's worship and the Sri Chakra and all this tantric detail that are there, and it's also it can't. People have argued whether or not it really fits the Advaitic teachings of Shankaracharya, but of all forms of Shaktism, it's the one that fits the Advaitic teachings of Shankaracharya, non-dualistic teachings of Shankaracharya. So he came to. So as he was leaving Nandikesh, he's a guard. He guards people coming in, but he also a guard at a store checks who's coming in, but also watches you leave. Right? Like, what do you got there? Right? A lot of people try to steal stuff from heaven. You know. This tree we're underneath, Parijata, was stolen from heaven. And originally, so the one behind this yellow tree is Parijata. It says Krishna went and had to fight Indra for. He wanted it for. It's happened before. It's not the first time people stormed heaven, you know. And he says, "Oh no, Devi Parvati gave me this." I say, no, yes, you yogis are always coming here with a little bit of tapasya. You make it here, and you're taking, and everything's believing. I won't let you take it. He says, no, Devi has given me to you. So they have a fight, and Nandi. I don't mean to be, grabs one hand, and he grabs, not this type of book, but, and they kind of rip it in half, and Nandi has heart, and Shankaracharya realizes he's losing and takes off with the other half, right? So he only had, I forget what the Sundar Lahari, it's like 100 verses, I think, right? Something like that. And I think 50-something verses or 40-something verses are considered to be original, right? So this is these are the tantric texts, and then then he's like, what do I do? So he went back to, he snuck around Nandi perhaps, went back and told Parvati that I only have half the text, or roughly half the text. And so he says, no, it's okay, you finish, you're a yogi, you have a perfect memory, you finish it. Right, you fill in the details. I'm not going to challenge Nandi's devotion to me by telling him embarrass him to give you back the text. Leave it like that. But Shankaracharya says he could, so when he couldn't recreate the writings of the teachings of Shiva on Devi, right? So instead, he simply started glorifying, out of devotion, her beauty. So the second half is just, or I forget what first half, second half, but the section, the Ananda Lahari, is just describing her beautiful eyes, her beautiful teeth, her beautiful smile, the way the eyebrows move, and how far the eyes are to the ears, and an extremely sophisticated poetry, right? And he put it within it all that same sophistication of the tantric philosophy, but in devotional poetry. And it's not even devotional poetry, it's devotional poetry, but it's almost erotic poetry. It's describing her as the most beautiful. She's tripled as the most beautiful of the three worlds, right? And so it's and I quoted a verse today to Prakash, who is not here right now, and he says, wow, that's very, because it's like it's so complicated, right? And so many things in one line is like 5 to 6 different things crashing, and we said, yes, Shankaracharya is very complicated. His devotion is very complicated because he's a world-renouncing ascetic and an absolute non-dualist, writing devotional poetry, right? Using erotic imagery as a celibate monk to his mother, right? So it's like a lot of weird things. So it's like there's a lot of bobs that none of them match. That's the problem. Any one of these can't. So it's like, it's very, how he does it is quite, I mean, whoever did it, we believe Shankaracharya did it by our faith, but it's definitely something very amazing, right? And some of these verses, so it came to my mind, let's see what the descriptions. I remember the descriptions of her eyes are very beautiful. Her descriptions of her beautiful eyes are very beautiful. So verse 29, I want to use that as my jumping off point here. 20. So I won't read the meter is, I don't want to mess up his meter, and I'm not so expert at it. But viśāla. So it says, translation is, your eyes are glorious, surpassing all the great cities in their uniqueness. They're wide, auspicious, undefeated even by the beauty of a blue lotus, shedding a continuous flow of grace, subtly sweet, bestowing enjoyment and offering protection to the world. Thy glance is fit to be referred to by the respective behaviors. So actually it says, glory surpassing all the great cities in their uniqueness. This list, like what is it, undefeated, beautiful, full of grace, these are all qualities of the Devi, but they're also the ancient world's famous cities of ancient India. Like you would think Benares and Ujjain, these are famous cities where there are famous Devi temples. They're considered beautiful temples, beautiful cities. So even by she's the most beautiful of the 3 cities, this list of 9 cities, I think, or 8 cities, 8 qualities are also cities of the time. So he's pulling also geography and, into it, very, and history, very interesting how he does it. But so your eyes are good. So that was describing what are the qualities of her eyes. What are let's to say her eyes are beautiful. To say that somebody has beautiful eyes means you look at their eyes and see the qualities. What do you see in somebody's eyes, right? So he's lists them. I separated them so I could think about them. So the first is viśāla. Viśāla. His has a diacritical, which means wide awake. Right, so it's one thing that she's ever, and that's one of the things, one of the names just a few days ago I was reworking on some verse from the Bhagavatam, and it says that, it says that this Bhagavatam was first spoken at there was a great gathering in the forest of Namyasaranya. It says, I'm forgetting something, Chaitra, I'm forgetting just now, forgive me, but it says the Chaitra, the field, the place of the unwinking one. Right, so that's interesting. Which here refers to it means it's a place sacred to Vishnu. It's a sacred spot, right? But the name of Vishnu is unwinking. So it has many here also. She's ever awake, right? And a few verses later, Shankaracharya will say that she never closes her eyes. She never blinks, right? And so you can say that is the all-knowing, all-perceiving. Nothing's ever not. You close your eyes, something can happen. He's always knowing. She always knows everything. But there's also an idea also that if the Lord, Lalita, it directly will say that if you the reason you don't close your eyes, if you close your eyes, the universe will cease to exist. Right. So that's why the gods usually aren't seen blinking. Right. Shiva closes his eyes. But what happens when Shiva closes? The world doesn't exist. In his world, it's like, and if we close our eyes, the world doesn't exist. almost practically, right? 90% of it disappears when you close our eyes, right? So it's not but the difference is that it's not dependent, the external world is not dependent upon our eyes, but it is dependent on her eyes, right? What she sees, what Shiva sees, what Devi sees. So that she ever awake, and then the commentaries say it's due to her, she's ever awake, and it's another way of saying she's not only all-knowing, but all-encompassing. There's no place that's left out, right? So she's one of the qualities of her eyes, Shankaracharya. And we have to assume, Shankar, if we take the mythological part of the story, right, that he went to Kailash and saw her, right, and got this teaching and went back, and she said, no, my child, just right, you feel it in. Like, if we take that literally, we take that as a then he's describing, when he's describing the beauty of her eyes, because he saw her eyes. Right, so it's like, or as a mystic, he's seen her eyes, or seen her eyes, right? So these are big qualities. These are the qualities that when you look at God's eyes, or that darshan, drishti, when you look eye to eye. Viśāla, kalyani. Kalyani means giving auspiciousness, right? They bring her eyes, her glance brings only good, right? Ayodhya means undefeated. And here it says undefeated by even the blue lotus. Blue lotus in ancient world, it has many levels, but it's considered very beautiful, rare and beautiful, right? So the most beautiful lotuses are considered the most beautiful flower, and blue lotus are the most rare, the most beautiful. So it's that type of thing. So, but even the most beautiful thing in the world, your eyes are often described as a lotus-like, but they're undefeated even by the most beautiful things. Nothing is like your eyes. So undefeated is not just like in battle, in beauty. Right, and of course, Kālī is seen as about. So it's tricky. I mean, these verses are about Lalita, and the verses, the sulocanā is the name of Kālī. Sulocanā is also named Lalita. It's also in the Kālī in the Lalita Sahasranāma. It's not only there, but they're not different goddesses. I'm just using one of the great writings on the Divine Mother's name, Mother's form is Shankara. So I'm using it, but. He also wrote similar hymns, we believe, to Mother Kālī also, in the Kālikastakam, describing her smile and like this in amazing ways. But so Viśāla, wide awake, Kalyani, granting auspicion, Ayodhya, undefeated, then Madhu, very sweet, right? Her teeth may devour ages, right? But her eyes are very sweet, at least to him. He's looking at her this way. Madhura, kripa dana, shedding streams of kripa, grace, mercy. Right, this is important. And Bhogavati, also granting enjoyment. Her glance brings everything to fruition, gives enjoyment. Avantika is giving protection. Right, this is why, and you see when people come to the Divine Mother, we come to a temple, to any temple, whether or not that's what people tell me, what would you pray for? Right, you pray for enjoyment, for protection, for auspiciousness, for happiness. These are the things. This is what her experiencing her brings. And Vijaya, Vijaya means courage or victory, right? Strength, both these like this. And so the ancient commentators on this ancient hymn, right, give a smaller set of qualities, that because the Devi doesn't have only two eyes, she has three eyes, right? And one of her names here is trilocanā, she who has three eyes. We'll get to that, right? So so usually we'll give a little hint, is the eyes are given one of the interpretation is that of sun, moon, and fire, right? The third eye is a different thing, and in the images of Lalita, that third eye is slightly reddened, right? And so it's given a fire quality, right? And that fire, so there's qualities of also so the Shakti, in other words, Devi is looking at Devi, especially with the third eye, which is a fiery eye. It's also Kundalini and all kinds of things like that. Is a lot of Shakti. It's the energy power. So that's not just like beauty and protection. It's like there's a power to do something, to awaken something, right? Her glance does something. It says that by her sidelong glance, trillions of universes are created, right? It's not just compassion and beauty. This is our darshan, but what is the real fire, the prana, the Shakti of her eyes, right? So it says, uchatan, it causes disturbance, right? And you can see even in human interactions, it's like somebody gives a look at somebody, it's like you can just say, oh my god, that guy freaked out, like a person looked at me weird. You know, it can disturb the mind tremendously, right? Stop looking. You know I'm talking about you. Right, it's a karshana, it's also attracting. Somebody with a look can even human behavior, this is true, but this is very much true of the Devi and supremely true. The avikarana, this avikarana is awakening romantic sexual desire, right? And that's all by the eyes, right? Jayama, right? And important in the imagery of Kālī and Lalita, this is there. Samohana means to infatuate. It's also one of the qualities. Vishikarana is to control, and you can see people control you by their eyes, you know. And some yogis, some of these things are siddhis also. Some people who do, there's practices. You know, we're not trying to encourage these practices, but there's practices and dealing with strataka and things like that. There people have, seem at least, have the power to agitate, to control, to mesmerize, to hypnotize, you know, with the power of their eyes. So some people actually try to develop these things, but these are natural, and these are originally in the Divine Mother. Tandana, it means to strike or to stupefy or to stop, to hit. You know, you can see somebody one glance can you know, just they don't have to slap you upside the head. I can just look at you, and you've been slapped upside the head. You know, and then vidravana is to defeat. You know, and sometimes not just in battle, but I'm reminded just now of a story. There was a Ramachandra Jha something. He was a famous pundit in Kashmir. Something Jha, I forget his first name. I won't remember it. Maybe George told us the story, and he went to debate Swami Lakshmanju, the great master of Kashmir Shaivism, in a philosophical debate. Right? Okay, maybe he had read an article of him as I can easily defeat it. He's supposed to be the greatest master. I have full knowledge of Sanskrit. You know, that's the way scholars do you a little bit. Some discussion and debate, right? Hoping that you get the upper hand and your fame increases, you know. So he went and said, I come to debate you. Yes, no problem, right? First, let's have a cup of tea, right? And so he had a cup of tea together, and by the end of the cup of tea, he bowed and says, I'm defeated by you, Swamiji. And he wrote very beautiful hymns. He accepted him like a guru. He wrote hymns about his lotus feet and Guru Paduka Stotrams for him and things like this, right? But it's like a cup, he was defeated. This defeating quality is not always by, you know, sometimes just by spiritual authority you're defeated, right? Just a few weeks back, there was a visiting Swami from Varshana, Swami Anubhava Krishna, very wonderful sadhu, and he told us he was saying something. I think I may have mentioned you actually. Oh, there's another devotee who would love to meet you, but unfortunately he was in school. I was like, oh yes, it was. So the topic became of education, right? And he says yes, our Guru Maharaj also told us he sent us all to go to school in philosophy and religion like that. And so I assumed, and in the Ramakrishna tradition, Sri Ramakrishna said that a sadhu should be some educated, because if you're teaching somebody, you need some knowledge, right? And he says that Ramakrishna said, to kill somebody else, you need a sword and a shield, right? You need weapons to kill somebody. But to kill yourself, a pocket a nail cutter. You do this, you do this, and you kill yourself, right? You don't need much. To kill somebody else is not easy. To kill yourself, not easy, but not that difficult, right? So he says, so Noah saying to your own liberation, one mantra, one word, one name of God, saying again and again was devotion. That's sufficient. You don't need much. But to be a teacher, to help remove somebody else's ignorance, you need so much knowledge, scriptural knowledge, and argumentative ability, and logic, and history, and like Swami Bhajanananda, he was such a person. You know, he had tremendous knowledge, right, of every topic and all the languages and philosophy, Western. As a result, he could come in front of anybody and present philosophy, and the world knows the result. So I thought he meant that. He goes, no, we don't mean that, because none of us are teachers, right? All of his disciples he sent for tapasya. We're all hermits. I've been living in a 6x9 room in Varshana the last 30 years, right? I'm on a pilgrimage right now to see places so Swami Vivekananda, but otherwise I've never given a lecture in my entire life, right? That's not his thing, right? He says the reason, he said, is so that we don't become It's helpful in our own sadhana. It's helpful in our own contemplation, our own self-discovery, and it stops us from being fanatical, and it keeps us broad-minded. Right, so that was a very nice. That was the purpose of it. He says, but then our Guruji to warn us that just this intellectual knowledge is not sufficient. He says, so now you're in school, right? Very nice point. Well, now you're in school. So what's the difference between you and your professor? Well, there's a huge difference between professor and you, right? Right. You know, it's like he's a brilliant professor, a PhD, and he's a maker of PhDs, and you're just a little student. Right? He says, actually, the only difference between you is a few books in a few years. Right, in a few years, he's read more books than you. You'll read those books, right? He has you'll eventually get, and then you'll be roughly the equal, right? There's no real difference, right? He says, but somebody with three doctorates in theology, Christian theology, right? But if they couldn't sit on the same seat as Jesus, right? Who was fairly uneducated. He was a carpenter, so if he was a carpenter, he didn't have much education. Not much more than simple reading and writing, almost illiterate, right? You know, so people they're nothing compared to Jesus, right? They're scholars in Islamic philosophy, right? Muhammad couldn't sign his name; he was illiterate, but they could not stand. They spent their whole life thinking they can have. There's just seeing such a being, you'd be defeated, right? All the great, you know, it's like at that level, it's good, it's useful. Right, but you'd be defeated so don't. I want you to all to study and for your own education, for your own enlightenment. But it's not the highest. I mean, can't say the highest, but it's very nice. He said even Swami Vivekananda with so much knowledge and so forth, he couldn't sit in front of Sri Ramakrishna. We barely could write his name. Luckily, he wrote a few places. We have a few signatures of his. But anyway, so this one of the qualities of this fiery glance of the Devi and in humans is defeating, right? Where are we here? And the final is marana. Marana means to defeat also, but it means to kill, right? And so you see that when Shiva, Kamadev, Cupid tried to he opened the third eye and goes whom. He looked at him, right, in the right way, the fiery eye, and burnt to ashes. Right, Devi does that. She opens and says something or looks at something, so by her sidelong glance, by her glance, worlds are created. By her glance, worlds can be destroyed. Right, this is the idea. By the name, some meditation, the name Sulocanā, she who has beautiful eyes. Aid number 73 is Virupakshi. Is that right? The second? Not here. Virupakshi. Make sure I'm on the same. 83. Virupakshi. So Virupakshi means Virupakshi. Pakshi means eyes, but it means they're different. They're not ordinary. Extraordinary, I guess you would say. Different, not just different like weird. Like, I mean, sometimes you would say, "Oh, that's weird." That's also a word for it, but that's not what's meant. It has weird eyes, not like that, right? But they're extraordinary eyes. They're uncommon, right? To say they're beautiful, you could say they're uncommonly beautiful. They're extraordinarily beautiful, something like that. They're not normal. Like we all know what beautiful eyes look like, but that's not the Devi's eyes, like this, right? So because like if I look into your eyes, maybe I know, but that same it's not an encounter with the highest reality, right? And so let's go to another name in 51. Very nice. I like this 51 here. So I read verse 51. O mother, thy glance, right? In other words, he's describing what I believe his extraordinary eyes, her extraordinary glance, extraordinary look of her. Thy glance. So it describes. So there's different ways of looking at somebody. So there's different emotions, there's different sentiments, right? So part of the idea is that every emotion, every sentiment, every reality exists in Devi. Right, and they exist in her eyes. She creates the world, right? She's created all emotions and sentiments and reactions and experiences through her eyes. So how does she look? So she doesn't look like normal people. So how is she looking? So it uses some poetry in the stories of Devi. So the first it says Shive Shingar Ardarar Adra Shingara Arda. My tongue's a little twisted. So when she looks at Shiva, how does she look? Right, so you have to think Shiva, part of this, it's a little bit of romantic and erotic type of poetry. So when she sees Shiva, she looks with excited love, right? So romantic love, right? Shingara means with all the symptoms and decorations of love, right? So that's so it's inciting love, excited love, and it incites love, right? When she looks at Shiva. So this is her lover, this is her soul, this is her husband, according to the stories. This is the Atman, this is the Pusha, whatever system you want to plug it in, and like that. But when she looked at somebody else, so like if she looks at her husband with romantic love, how would she look at other people that aren't? He says actually uses the word, and she looks at Shiva with excited love, and she looks at people who aren't Shiva, other people, other men, other people, right? With vibhasta, which means was dislike, right? Right. So at her husband, she sees was romantic with other people, because you can see it in comparison. It's like, so yeah. So hopefully she's not looking at us with dislike, right? But the other. It's another thing. It's connected to the poetry of the romantic. So your lover, you look one way, and somebody who's not, you look another way. The opposite of that. You're not interested, right? But also, other means somebody who's unfamiliar, right? So we approach her as mother. We're not trying to get an erotic glance from her, right? But we don't want a dismissal of like, who are you again? Right, you know, when the Bible says that Jesus will say, "Begone, I never knew you." People are saying they're his disciples, but when they come in front of him, he says, "I don't know you." You know, that's a very scary. To me, that's a very scary. That's one of the scariest lines in the Bible, right? I think it may be in John, in the vision of John, and the book, maybe the book Revelation even, right? People come in front of. So finally, they get to heaven. The Christians, right? The devotees, and it says, "And who are you again? I don't know you." That's the very dangerous part. You know, we don't want to be in that position either, as somebody who's not known by her of dislike. Then she looks at Shiva with erotic love. She looks at others, strangers, with dislike, right? She looks at the Ganga. Now this you have to understand some story, because of course the Ganga is pure and also Devi's Rupa, but in the story the Ganga is also a wife of Shiva, right? So she's a co-wife. Right, and so in the story they don't always get along, right? So it says she looks at her with raudra, with anger, right? She's a competitive, not really, but this is the way it's in the story. It's told like that, right? Because when Shiva had to agree, and the whole leelas that are there to accept, because Shiva has ekpatnivrat, he has a patnivrat, that he can only have one wife. That's an agreement. Right, other gods have, even Vishnu has two wives, right? But Shiva can only have one wife. But due to a very complicated series of stories, Ganga is also his wife, right? Not primary wife, and also she holds Ganga, right? And the idea, even in marriage rites, even in America, you lift up your wife, you carry into the house. So a man picking up and carrying a woman is a sign of accepting in marriage. Right, so even that olding. That's how the earth, how Vishnu got the earth as wife, right? Because he, as Varaha, he picked her up and when she was stolen by Hiranyaksha and brought her back up, and so that's sufficient. That's a simple, you know, like exchanging garlands. You're married, you know. So. In the story, maybe not. I don't. When I look at the Ganga, I don't look. I bet you Parvati really hates you, because actually they're sisters in the stories. Parvati and Ganga are both daughters of the Himalayas, right? So anyway, there's a Leela part but it's illustrating the point, trying to use the stories of Devi to show all these different ways that she looks, right? Because some people she looks with erotic romance, others with disinterest or dislike, others with anger, the competitive people. And so what does that mean? We don't want her angry look. We don't want to be, but it also means we don't want to be a competitor, right? And most of us, the thing is like there's not room for two gods, right? Or two wives or two husbands, in the world of non-duality, and or in the world of non-duality in Vedanta, or the world of ishtanishta, of one-pointed devotion in bhakti, So if we're trying to be the center of attention, right, then Devi's not going to look at us nicely. Maybe with anger. Jaima, please come. So she looks at, when she looks at Shiva, she looks with romance. When she looks at others, she looks with dislike. When she looks at Ganga, the co-wife, she looks at anger, right? When she hears Shiva's activities, his leelas, like all the glorious things Lord Shiva has done, right? This is abut. Abut, I mean, she's amazed. She looks with amazement when she thinks of the activities and the glorious activities of Shiva. She looks with amazement, adbhuta. Then, of course, we know snakes are Devi's favorite animals, right? But in the story, you have to have some in the Leelas of Devi. What can she fear? So people are generally afraid of snakes, right? So when she sees a snake on Shiva's shoulder, she looks with fear. That's one of the ways we look, in the way, because he's a dangerous creature, right? So she looks with fear. That means bhayankara. When she looks at her friends, her shakis, right? And so when we look at her friends, she looks with she smiles with happiness, right? It says hasya. She smiles. That's another, right? And then he says actually. He says when you look at me, Shankaracharya is saying, which means a devotee, right? He says then you see with karuna. Karuna means also with compassion, grace and compassion and love, affection, karuna, right? So that's actually, we're given a key, right? The erotic look is not appropriate from Devi. Right, she's married to another. She doesn't even want another. She's very focused like that, and we don't want to be an unknown person. But this is a safe position. If you approach her as her devotee, as her child or devotee or something like that, then her look is automatically karuna. So I'll read the actual verse. I pulled it apart before reading it, my mistake. O mother, thy glance at Shiva is softened by love. At others it is characterized with the feeling of dislike. At Ganga with that of anger. On hearing the heroic exploits of Shiva with that of wonder. At the great serpent forming the ornament of Shiva with that of dread. At the sight of thy comrades with a smile. And at me, thy devotee, with that of compassion. Right. And then it adds, it says, moreover, this is a number thing, but remember there's that third eye, right? That's still, so moreover, thy glance has a red tinge, right? And so it's against that Shakti powerful thing, a tinged loveliness of a lotus flower, indicating courage and heroism, right? So it's another way you also look with this power. And while this list is there, the commentators have made a very interesting point, or their claim is an interesting point. Some of these, because she's in the stories of Devi, she has two primary realities. She has many functions. She does many things, right, including killing demons and saving, whatever needs to be done. She has all the relationship. So dislike and anger and amazement and fear and smiling. These qualities are not essential. They're occasional. Right, but the two things that are is Shringara and Karuna. Shringara is that romantic love, right? That she's always that's continuous as a wife in the story, but as the Shakti of Shiva in as Tattva, as Leela and in Tattva, she's ever connected. She's never separated from Shiva. She's always focused on Shiva. They're one and the same. They're two in one, right? So the Shringara Bhava never or Drishti never changes. And the other one is karuna, that of compassion towards her children or devotees, because that's also eternal, right? A mother, no matter what, even no matter how old you are, how misbehaved you are, right, still loves her child, right, or loves her devotee. So that her love for Shiva and her love for her devotee, or these are actually eternal. The other ones, her valor, her anger, her dislike, her fear, whatever these different things. But of course, like, did the Divine Mother really have fear? Probably not. Is she really angry? Probably not. This like these are. But the fact that we have in this world, Shankaracharya is showing that there exists within the Devi herself. Everything is created by her glance. So he's describing what it is to see, what you can see in her, and how you approach her. Right. But this means that the Devi responds. Each one of these glances, is how you look at her is how she's going to look back, right? She responds to the bhava or the mood of her of the looker, right? This is also why you don't want people looking at your shrine who are going to be disrespectful, who don't have any faith or critical. You always see somebody says, "Oh, you don't worship that, do you?" You'd be hurt that they say like that. It's like, but she'd be hurt. I mean, that's not. It's also our job not to let that happen. That's not the interaction that should happen, right? So we have to protect our bhav and the bhav. Like we always say, we have to protect the mood of this place. We sometimes use that language, right? Like Kālī Mandir has a particular mood, right? And there's many ways of approaching Divine Mother. There's many different spiritual practices. There's many but we have a particular mood that we have to protect also, right? We don't want the other ones are, like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, whichever way you approach me, I respond, right? So if you want to be an enemy of Krishna, then you can fight him. He's a really good fighter, and he'll win, right? If you want to be a lover of Krishna, you can love him. If you want to be his enemy, you can fight him. If you want to be, if you want to think about him, he's philosophical truth. If you want to love him, he's the best lover. Whatever like that. So there's many you can approach Ma in a million, not just these 9 or 10 ways, unlimited ways. Right, you can make up your own. And she responds to type, but that's not the mood of this. That's not the mood that we're contemplating. We're holding. Right, this is not the form that we want her here. Right, and so of course Gora Rupa, Gora Damstra, these other names describing her fierce form, but now it's switching to beyond that. How do we see her directly? Next name is viśālākṣī. 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 This also in the Sahasranāma, it's there, name 936, almost towards the end. Viśālākṣī, Viśālākṣī Namaha in the Sahasranāma. So this means she has big, large eyes, right? And that's considered a sign of. Every culture has their own view of what beauty is, but in Indian culture, very large eyes are considered very beautiful. Right, partially because they're genetically have large eyes, right? So it's a genetic thing that's a simple answer. But it's also because everything has significance because it signifies something. It means everything means something, right? And so the eyes are saying about wisdom and perception and knowledge. Therefore, large eyes means large knowledge, large perception. So these are good qualities, right? And so like something you have what a Meenakshi, she has fish eyes, right? And so people say, oh, fish eyes, what does that mean, right? And so is it shaped like fish, or is it but usually it's described as long, fish eyes are like this. So describing these really big, going all the way to the ear. That's it's like so. Of course, that's not the normal, but actually, I've seen people with such eyes in India, and they're very beautiful eyes. It is actually a fact, like wow, And one of them is named Meenakshi. Yes, Meenakshi has Meenakshi eyes. He was very nicely named by our Guruji. This one girl at our ashram, she has Meenakshi eyes, right? Meenakshi Devi. So viśālākṣī means big, beautiful, big eyes, large eyes, and this is a simple meaning. Is it's all seen. That's a simple meaning of large eyes, right? That's a simple meaning. But also, if our goal is to have darshan, she's easy of access. We can see, we can look into her, we can have a direct experience. Another verse 50. So this is the one this is what Prakash said. It's a very complicated sentiment where those 9 to 6 or 7 unmixable sentiments come together in one verse. He says he's now describing her very large eyes, almost fish-shaped eyes, right? Iconographically as a beautiful face. He uses a lot of poetic usage, right? Where he says your two eyes are like bumblebees. Right? Why bumblebees? Because bumblebees are always attracted to where there's honey, right? And so the fact that the eyes are so big they reach to the ear, that means there must be honey in the ear, right? So where did the honey in the ear come? Because all the devotees with these 9 sentiments, these 9 devotional sentiments, they're constantly singing to you and pouring their beautiful words into your ears. Right, it's like, and your eyes are like bees are rushing. They're so big to be near the ears. Right, that's a lot going on in that one line. It's like, whoa. Western poetry doesn't use that style. You have to be a little bit, can't say trained, because you have to get a little accustomed to Eastern Indian Sanskrit poetical norms to
Masters of metaphor.
Yeah, true masters of metaphor. My goodness, right? So the two honeybees of your long eyes are constantly hovering about thy ears, imbibing the honey dripping from the flower bunch of the 9 poetic emotions poured into them by your poet devotees, singing your hymns. That's a pretty good line. Large eyes, right? But I think this is also I think people have said and people have meditated, and I've been thinking about it. I think it's very significant, because one of the ways you see her, right, is through these sentiments. And one of the ways you get these sentiments is by reading, chanting these hymns, singing these songs. A poet, it's like, we don't know what the sentiments are, but the poet saints did. And they gave us a way to speak it, right? In Baba Rampuri's book, he mentioned when he talked to his guru, he says, like, his guru is teaching him all these things and about Hanuman and Saraswati and Vaishnav Devi and all these deities and Dattatreya and Bhairava, and he's like, well, they're all just, I don't know who these deities are. How do I develop knowledge or relationship? Oh, just say their name, right? If you say their name, right, speak their name, and then you'll get to know them. You'll get to know their nature by speaking it. You see them, right? So there's some connection. That made that connection. The bees of her eyes means that connection with her, direct one-to-one darshan, comes when her glories are being sung, her poetry, the sentiments, these divine sentiments are being. So we don't know who she is, and we don't know how to think about her, right? The saints are telling us hints of it, right? And they're giving us also how to think about her, right? And there's many ways to think about it, but these ways we know have an effect, right? It's these sentiments are so attractive, like honey to a bee, that her eyes come to that place, right? So that is very nice. So seeing this good fortune of your 2 eyes, remember, she doesn't have only 2 eyes, she has 3 eyes. The next name would be trilocanā, 3 eyes, right? So it's a good setup with the next name, right? There's a 3rd eye there, and that 3rd eye is way away from the ears, right? Her 2 big eyes reach the ear. The 3rd eye is seen as red, right? I mentioned, right, that anger, Shakti, like that. But red also means angry. So why, or jealous? Red was anger, or red was jealousy, right? So he says, seeing this good fortune of the other 2 eyes, right? Your 3rd eye on the forehead looks slightly red out of jealousy or anger. That's a very nice point. Like, you try that to your lover, or girlfriend, or boyfriend. Like, oh, your eyes. Oh, sweetheart, your 1 eye is like the sun, the 2nd eye is like the moon, the 3rd eye is like fire. It's like it breaks apart a little bit. But very, very nice. So it's giving a little. But also then it gives a little hint of what is that 3rd eye. That's a different category, and we'll go into that. So then the next name is, what did I say? Trilocanā, right? Trilocanā means easy, 3 eyes, right? Now, of course, not all deities, but usually we see certain deities with 3 eyes. Shiva and Devis almost always. Shiva and the Devis. And Shiva is usually seen with the 3rd eye closed. Right, he opens his eye. When he opens the 3rd eye, because that's that fiery eye, right? There's something happens. Usually, something gets burnt up, right? Universes can be destroyed, right? At least whoever he's looking at, it's a fiery. But that's also a big deal. We'll go into that. Why that 3rd eye opening means something, what changes. But Devis, like Kālī, you always see her with 3 eyes. Lita, you see her with 3 eyes. Most of these forms, you see her with 3. Well, the Devi Rupas with 3 eyes. We are, and so the eyes are given some similar, like in the Bhagavatam, it describes your right 1 eye is the sun, the other eye is the moon, and your 3rd eye is fire. right? Sun, moon, and fire. These are the three. They're very nice for eyes because these are the three sources of light, right? It's like in the daytime we see by the sun, at nighttime we see by the moon, and when there's no moon we see by fire or extensions of fire, electricity and things like that, right? It's a simple thing. And in the Upanishads we mentioned three weeks ago, that when the guru asked the disciple, "What is the light of man?" He says, "Oh, it's the sun." What about at nighttime? Oh, it's the moon. What if there's no moon? Then it's then it's fire. What if you're inside and there's no fire? Then there's sound, because you need to find out. He goes subtle, and finally he goes. It's like when there's no fire and there's no light and there's no moon. There's no what is the light? Then it's like just the awareness. Your self-awareness is what the real light of. That's the real light, right? So there's a sun, moon, and fire has many. Even in Vedanta, it's used as something, but the thing is, it's sometimes hard to love a being whose one eye is a sun, one eye is a moon, the third eye is fire. Whereas Swami Chaitanya says that it's like, can you oh honey, you're right, you're beautiful eyes, you're of sun, moon, and fire. It's like Swami Chaitanya says that in also in the Gita, when Arjuna saw the universal form, it was a little overwhelming is to say nothing, right? It's a little over. But also, it's like it's hard to have a relationship with a being whose one eye is the sun, the other side. I mean, cosmic being, right? Who's swallowing the universes and grinding. It's like it's the truth, right? It's a way of it's a perception of the truth, but it's not a way we can easily relate, right? So he prays, "Let me see your original form. Let me see your two. Not even that. Even let me see the form that I know, that I can relate to, that I can have relationship to." So but with Devi, she always is seen with three eyes, especially in Kālī, because Kālī is a fully awakened type of form. Parvati sometimes mimics with two eyes, and the third eye opens when she becomes Kālī or something. And Durga also, she has three eyes, but in the Chandi, she opened the third eye, and some dramatic Kālī comes, and there's different things like from her forehead and like this. But the idea of sun, moon, and fire, that's simple. It's perception, it's light, it's how we see things. It's a good symbol. But yogis take it a little more deeply. They say that we have sun, moon, and fire within us. I just saw a mouse run by. Jai Ganesh. Govinda. It's the season of rats and mice. So it says that I'm trying to hear. So it says that the right eye is the sun, the left eye is the moon, and the third eye is fire. So this relates to yogi as Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna, the solar current and lunar current, and the central current, right? The Pingala, the sun, right channel, it's red, it's masculine, it's hot. It represents on the planet represents the river Yamuna, and it's active when we breathe through the right nostril. The right nostril. The Ida is the moon. It's the left channel. It's white. It's feminine. It's cooling. It represents in the river, in the world of the river, it represents the Ganga, or the Ganga represents it, and it flows from Muladhara to the left nostril. It's flowing when breath is flowing to the left nostril, and most people don't notice that they only breathe through one nostril at a time, right? It switches every couple hours usually. Right, and that's. I remember when I gave a class at UCI and to yoga teachers, and I given a class on the swaras, which is how the breath. And you mentioned breath, and they're like yoga teachers never notice. We don't notice our own breath is the problem, right? Even yoga teachers don't notice how you breathe only through one nostril. It's like it's something so close to us that we don't even notice. A problem we don't even notice. It's the closest thing to us. We notice our breath. We can't notice. There's things closer than our breath. Right, even closer than your breath. And then Sushumna, when prana moves in Sushumna, the central, that's it represents the Saraswati river represents that. That's also the path of Kundalini, so that's considered the path of fire. So it's like that. There is a mantra, and so so the third eye would be here. Right, so this is Ida Pingala, or here Ida Pingala, or the left brain, I guess, the left lobe of the brain, or people left brain activities, and right. The people, I don't think it's so easily typed, but there's some general thing, or you're left-brained or right-brained, you're more emotional, you're more logical, or there's something to it. I mean, it's I think it's a little falling out of favor now, that full bifurcation, but there's something to it, right? So the two sides, and then the third eye is here. So that also, it's in the cosmic being of the Divine Mother. It's embodied energetically in our nervous system, or our subtle nervous system, and it's also imprinted in the geography of the earth, the planet, right? And so it says that the Ganga and Yamuna are the Ida and the Pingala, right? And therefore, and Sushumna would be Saraswati. And in ancient times, most likely people believe that Saraswati would also join. And there's a place in India where the Ganga and Yamuna meet. That's Allahabad, right? Or Prayag. That's my guru's ashram. That's my hometown, right? So we think it's the center of the world, right? The center of it's our center. It's the center of the world, and Saraswati, people have faith. Oh, the Saraswati is invisible, or the Saraswati is underground, right? And there's scholars who say there's Saraswati. We never went there. Other scholars say there's Saraswati still goes there. It's an underwater flow. That if you take it geographically or geologically, you may fall apart a little bit. It's not meant just to be taken that. Although there's probably something to it, right? That the river. But the fact that it's not seen, that's also we only breathe through one throat. We almost never, prana is never into Sushumna, right? So the fact that people are arguing in the thing of whether it was ever there, whether it exists, or whether it ever existed, or what happened, where to go, what happened to the Saraswati, and with a cataclysmic plate tectonic change or a drought, or what happened, and I mean on the train on the way to Allahabad, imagine. In a train full of intellectual Bengali professor types, all debating whether the Saraswati ever still flows in Allahabad for 15 hours. That was I was just sitting there walking with her, all having great fun, It's but it's hidden, whatever it is. Even in our Saraswati, our Sushumna is hidden. It's almost unknown to us. Even our Ida and Pingala are almost unknown to us. What to speak of Sushumna. Right, so where they meet is almost entirely unknown to us, and so where they meet on the earth is Prayag, and bathing there, people go to Prayag, right, with great faith that something happens, right? That it's going on pilgrimage. Prayag is almost equivalent to it corresponds to a yogi balancing Ida and Pingala and awakening Sushumna and being where they all meet here, right? And from here it goes up, right, as a single current, right? So so the thing, if you bathe, especially during certain important astrological or astronomical times, right, where that's figured out for the Kumbh Mela, especially on Amavasya. On a particular time on Amavasya, called Moni Amavasya, then sins of thousands of lives can be destroyed. Right? There's people have great faith, and for thousands of years, this has been a place of pilgrimage, and even in modern secular India, right? Or if we just look at in Kālī Yuga. Faithless Kālī Yuga, right? The pilgrimage is more popular than ever. Every year it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, partially due to publicity and vacation and spectacle, and there's all that. But still, people go, and it's we've all experienced it. It's, I mean, not all, but a few of us have experienced it recently. It's a little overwhelming, and you feel the faith is really incredible, and people do it because they get something, right? And they keep doing it. Right, not just once in a life. There's a thing called Kalpavas where you spend 1 month there from Purnima to Purnima, and every day you never leave the Mela site. You take a bath every day. You chant your scripture. You feed some poor people or some sadhus. You do japa. Many rich people they're camping on the bank, right? And when they do it, I know people, they do it year after year. As soon as they do it. They take a month off work, and they camping on the bank of the river. And the belief is that it's called Kalpavas, because the sins of a kalpa are destroyed, it says. Kalpa is a world age, almost, you could say, like the inconceivable amount of time, right? So something happens. So there's a verse in the Tantras, Jnana Sankalini Tantra, the very nice yogic tantric text. Ira Bhagavati Gange Pingala Yamuna Nari. Ira Pingalayor madhye Shushumna cha Saraswati. It gives a meaning. Ida is the divine Ganga, Pingala is the river Yamuna, and in between Ida and Pingala is Shushumna, which is the Saraswati. So it's like it's exactly defining the rivers and the Kumbh Mela tradition and our body. And it says Triveni Sam Gamo Yatra Tirtha Raja Cha Uchate Tatra Snanam Prakur Vita Sarva Papir Pramunchate. Triveni Sangam is where the three rivers meet, right? So now, what's he talking about? He says that the Ida and the Pingala and Shushumna are the Ganga, Yamuna, and Saraswati. So where they meet, Triveni Sangam, where the three rivers meet. Is he talking about Prayag, where the Ganga, Yamuna meet, or is he talking here, where Ida, Pingala, and Shushumna meet? It's both, right? They're simultaneous. They're not either or, right? So he is not clear which one he's talking about, right? Sorry, I lost my place here. Triveni Sangam, where the three rivers meet, is known as Tirtharaj, the king of holy places. So is it Allahabad, the king of holy places, right? Or is here the king of holy places? It's both, simultaneously, one and both, right? And then it says, bathing there, one is freed of all sins. So the faith people go there, take a bath, and they're free. And I'm convinced that they're, at least, Sri Ramakrishna had a variant. He says that when you bathe in the Ganga, your sins are fact destroyed. But the problem is the sins know that. They've been at this a long time. They know all the tricks of human beings to get rid of them, right? And they don't want to they have a very nice place to live, and a modern American boy like me, they have a very nice place, right? They have a very nice kutir and good tea and no lack of orange clothes, they have to wrap themselves warm and whatever this is, they find their place nestled. So what they do, they hang out, they jump off of you while you go in. They know that, and they hang out in the trees, Ramakrishna said. Joking, half joking, but not really joking. There's something happened. And when you come back out, they jump back on you. They have a nice clean place to live now. So you see, we go and sometimes we feel nothing's changed, right? Because our habits haven't changed. There's a problem, right? So, but of course, you go again and again, bit by bit. You do come back changed, maybe not fully changed, but you're definitely transformed. You don't go on a pilgrimage called Tirtha Yatra. This is the greatest Tirtha Yatra. So the greatest Tirtha Yatra, according to this text, is taking a bath at the Sangam, right? But that means the greatest Tirtha Yatra is to bathe here, right? That's what it means to bathe there. That's the real. If you did that, then I think your sins are fully forgiven. Because then what happens? Here, Ida and Pingala, or Ganga Yamuna, this is the world of duality, right? And Shushumna is beyond duality. It's when the two become one stream. In the world of duality, there's no sin, and not only a sin, but virtue is also destroyed. There's no sin, nor papa, nor punya. Right? I was my first big Kumbh Mela. I was there I did Kalpabas 1 month, right? And the final day, Purnima, right? We went with my Guru Bhai, Swami Bhajanananda Saraswati. He was a great yogi and a Vedantic scholar, and we're grateful because everybody were having this is 1 month. It was a big deal, right? And also the crowds are down, so it's more fun, and we're splashing in the water like kids. He's a 70-year-old kid, and I was a 25-year-old kid or whatever, and we're splashing in the water. And I said, Swamiji, he goes, yeah. He says, now all of our sins are forgiven. Removed, right? Or removed, not forgiven, using Christian language, right? Or washed away, in the blood of Jesus, or in the water of the Ganga, whatever it is that does the washing, right? And he goes, yes, but that's still, but leaving our punya, right? And which will only lead to a reincarnation into an auspicious body, a materially opulent body, and have no benefit for spiritual realization. Great. With a long, cold month. Noisy, dirty, cold. I was kind of caught, right? Because the bathing in the Ganga, your sins are forgiven, but your punya is still there, right? Because I came out of it still in the world of duality. Maybe I believe was many sins, and the karma is washed away many, right? Lighter for sure, right? But it's still in the world of duality. And to the world duality, that's not freedom, right? Punya is not the goal, right? Papa is not getting rid of papa is not the goal, nor getting punya is the goal. It's not even getting rid of papa or getting rid of punya. It's being beyond punya and papa. So that's what the bathing there, one is free of all. One goes beyond sin, but also beyond punya, beyond good, beyond evil, beyond success, beyond failure, beyond heat, beyond cold. So it's a very deep verse. I like this verse because this is like I found out. Oh, this is a verse that exactly describes, And when you go, if you think of, you go there, and you're bathing or about to bathe in the Ganga, in the Sangam, and you can feel this is also here. If we can make that connection, the problem is that takes tapasya, that takes subtlety, it takes advancement, but going there also takes punya and advancement, and to be able to bathe in such a place, right? It's a very holy place. So this is the yogic interpretation of Ma three eyes, or our three eyes, or the world three eyes, right? Another thing, three eyes also means past, present, and future, right? If eyes mean seen, what do you see? So three eyes means to see past, present, and future. If that's in language of iconography, like four faces means sees in all directions, and many arms means all powerful, and so there's a language to interpret the symbolism of the deities, right? So that's a simple thing. But then to go back to the third eye being beyond the two, that we see, it's a very nice symbol that even if we close one eye, we're still in the world of duality, right? That's a problem, it's not that simple, right? But we see through two eyes, representing the world of our seeing, the world of duality, and she is this world of duality, but it's Gora Rupa, Gora Damstra, right? It's a fierce reality in the world of change and form and birth, death, and causation, and karma, and reaction, and it's a complicated. It's divine, but it's not. It's a complicated thing, right? The world duality. So when you go beyond that, and so in yoga, Ida and Pingala are balanced and then joined, right? That's the thing. And in pranayama also, they're balanced. They're you go you breathe this breath and go that breath, and slowly, and then you hold your breath. So then prananida moves in this one or that one, and then it enters the sushumna. That's the energetics of this process, right? And in Hatha yoga, same thing. Hatha yoga is Ha and Ta, sun and moon yoga, right? Union, right? And Hatha means actually the Ha is united with Ta. The sun, the logical, surrenders to the feminine. This is the view of the logical mind through devotion. The logical mind surrenders into devotion. But that when two rivers meet, the usual thing. If you go to Prayag, or any place where you see rivers meet, a Sangam, the Ganga and Yamuna meet. Of course, it's supposed to then go at Saraswati, but actually Ganga and Yamuna meet and it becomes Ganga. Yamuna merges into the Ganga, and you see the two waters merge. There's one is blue, and one is brown orange, right? It says that one is the color of Krishna, the other is the color of Shiva's this cloth, right? The Ganga and Yamuna, they come from different sources, right? But when they merge, you see slowly they merge. They become they come together. They're in unity, so they become like that. So this is one thing, is that you have the world duality, and then you have the world of unity, where the two can't they become one, but they join, right? And that's also the world of devotion. That's a type of duality. That's a type of Advaita. That's the devotee's Advaita, right? It's an experience, because it's we want. We don't want the difference between. I mean, some people, there's different. I can't say we don't want. There's different schools of thought, and different people have different orientation, but we want to know God. We want to experience God. We want to feel the universe. We want to feel one. We want to feel like that. But that requires, to feel something requires something to feel, right? So even the unitive experience, the unity of God and connection with God and embrace of, it's like in all the romantic language and like that, it's not one. There still has to be an experiencer and the experience and experience. The experiencer, the experience, and experience, right? So so unity is not the same as non-duality. It's non-duality that's blissful, right? It's because we want to feel the one. We want to feel one and feel the one. But that requires one to feel, right? So that's the thing. So three eyes, but actually, Brahman is not described as having three eyes, right? It's described what the name, one of the, when Brahman is described, of course Kālī and Brahman are not different, but when you use that language, the language of pure Advaita, the Upanishads use things like kavalyam, which means like, I don't know what, singularity, I guess you'd use it, like it's like Guruji say one without a second, like Guruji says one without a second, no second. So if that's the only one, we're not here, right? Nothing's here. It's everything's here, but only it's here. There's only one. There's only one reality, one awesome, singular. That may be the truth, but that's the truth. But the truth that we can experience is an experience of unity, not of so that we call it the experience. Oh, it's kavalyam. It's Advaita, like this, right? So, but in the tantric tradition, the devotional traditions, that how do we know? You can't even say the last few weeks have been describing like that God is not the knower. It's not the known. It's the knower. It's the subject, not the object. But then we said actually that's also not true. In the Devi Bhagavatam, it starts up saying actually God is not the known. God's a knower, but actually it's not that. God is the reality in which the knower and the unknown exist. The knower and the knower, knower, knowledge, and known exist. It's the one reality in which those things seem to arise, right? So is that knowable? It knows itself. Only Brahman realizes, Brahman Thakur says, right? When that experience happens, there's nothing else to say what it is. It itself knows if it knows, right? But we can have that knowledge through, can't say step down, but in the language of yoga, in the language, yoga, union, right? So in the language of yogis, we have the union with God, or union of the two rivers meet and join and merge, but it's not one thing, right? But it is one thing. So we have to, so it's very, recently Swamiji was translating a section of M's introduction on Sri Ramakrishna's life. M wrote an introduction, and when it came to his Advaitic practice, all it mentions about his Advaita practice is that Bhairavi Brahmani, right, his devotional and tantric guru, says don't think too much about Advaita, don't think too much about Vedanta, it will ruin your devotion. That's all it said. That's all we know about. All M thought to share about his Sri Ramakrishna's Advaitic sadhana and realization is that his guru said, "Don't think too much like this; you're going to ruin your devotion." Right. So it's interesting, but so we can't if you overdo the Advaitic, we can confuse ourselves and kill the whole thing, right? So Sri Ramakrishna said, you take the knowledge of non-duality of Advaita and you tie it in your cloth. And with that in your cloth, like you hide some money or some sugar or some sweets or something in your belt or something, in the corner of your sari or your cloth, then you enjoy. If you need it, it's there, right? So it should be the background, right? It's logically has to be the back. It is the truth, right? But how do we live with that? We want to live in union and love and experience of that, right? If it's just that, there's no experience of that. It's only that. Right, and that it's doing. It's and its experience, his own self-experience, is us. So we can. So, anyways, it's a little bit between. I want to talk about duality, unity, and singularity is a different thing, right? And then you have that peculiar line that's there in the in the Christian Gospels, where I think it's attributed to Jesus. I'm saying it. He said, "If your eye be single." No, if your eye be dual, your body shall be full of darkness, right? And if your body be single, your body shall be full of light, right? And different people, it's been that's the King James version. It's been retranslated with some little changes, trying to understand what it meant at the time, right? And so I've thought about it all these, that's so yogic, and it's definitely about Ida and Pingala, and when the third eye awakens, then you see the one, we superimpose. It's perfect because it sounds just like a yogic description, right? But it could also make sense on its own, independent of Indian yogic tradition, right? But it says what the eye is. One of the previous lines says, "What the eye," if I remember properly, "what the eye is, so is the world." In other words, how you see it is what you see. The seer sees the world, right? You see the world you see, right? You're the one who creates the world you're seeing, right? And so this world of the word for if your eye be dual, some modern translation, if your eye be evil. Right, your world shall be full of darkness, In other words, if you're a bad person, you see bad. If you're ugly inside, you see ugliness everywhere. If you're just, that type of thing. But if you're side be single or good, another use of that translation, then you see the world good, right? But that still fits, right? The world be if your eye be double or your eye be, it's like if you're seeing if you see the world dualistically, you see darkness. You see what the darkness here means birth, death, right? Suffering, disappointment. All these type of, our world is dark, our body is dark, your whole body, your whole world should be dark. But if your eye be single, if your eye be divine, if you see through the divine eye, so even if it's not talking about the third eye where the Ida and Pingala meet, and even if there is no third eye where the Pingala meet, and that's just a metaphor for a spiritual reality superimposed on our nervous system, that's very likely too. They all signify the divine experience, right? When you see divinely, when you see in unity, when you see, or to go back, when you're seeing Ma face to face, when you're looking into her eyes, things change, right? The world is transformed, right? What time is it now?
6:33.
Okay, so I'm just gonna, the last two names, I don't have any much to say about it, so I'll just say them, and they're also hard to pronounce. Śāradendu-prasan-nāsyā, right? Śāradendu means the month of autumn, right? The autumn season. Śārad, this is where we are in a fall, right? Śāradendu means the fall moon, right? So you could say it's the moon. Is it okay? It's the moon. It's the full moon actually it's today. This name is today. It's the full moon, the first full moon of fall, right? Of Śārad, which is Ashwin. Today is Ashwin Purnima, and fall is this Śārad is from Ashwin to Kartik. Actually, it started. Ashwin started on Purnima, and then in two Purnimas. Anyway, so this is the first. This is it, right? So it says that, and prasanna means she's happy. So it's describing still her. It's a transition between her eyes, and then the next verse will be about her face and smile and mood, right? So it's a transitional name, I believe, right? So her eyes, right, show they're as prasanna means happy, pleased, cheerful. So her eyes, her face, her mood are as cheerful or happy as the autumn moon, right? But the autumn moon and this autumn season is also when Navaratri is, right? So this is a very special time for the Devi, and for the and the mystical time. That this is her. So it's also giving. It's not spring. It's not summer. It's going into winter. Things are getting dark. Right, so it's also has meaning of going, find that inner vision, right? And the final name, spurat. How do you pronounce this? Smerāmbujekṣaṇā, right? So sphurat-smerāmbujekṣaṇā. Let's pull the names apart. Right? Sphurat means it means like trembling or shaking, right? But it has another sub-meaning of like sparkling, like light also like shake. So it has a little bit meaning like that. And shimmering. Oh, that shimmering. That's a weird. I didn't know how to shimmering type of thing. Shaking, trembling, shimmering. That's very nice, right? Smera here means it's a connecting word like it's like this. This is a metaphor or Spura. It's like ambo your eyes. Akshana means eyes. Ambu means lotus. Your lotus-like eyes, or whose eyes are like trembling lotuses or shimmering. What did you say? Shimmering lotuses. So that's a very nice final image, right? Your eyes are like, of course, they're like lotus-like eyes, right? But they're like, just very, very, very nice. They're sparkly. We say, oh yes, he has sparkling eyes, right? So it's a way of saying that, but using the poetics, the triggers of beauty, like shimmering and a shaking lotus, or these are the images, So you could say that she whose eyes are like trembling lotuses, or sparkling lotuses, or shimmering lotuses, or whose, you could say, who purity shines in her lotus-like eye. It's another way of translating it. So anyways, this will, I think, will end there because people are probably waiting inside, and we won't have time for questions this time, but next time. And we're thanking, I know that a few people who have been watching even in India via Facebook, so we appreciate them, and glad to be connected. Jai Ma Kālī, Jai Thakur. Those eyes. A song like that. Sorry, I only have the first. I know. I'm trying to remember the second line of that song.